the structural directive ng if and switch and ng for, and few important attributes, properties related to the structural directive ng for we have seen. Yep. So next, after understanding that, we need to know about the other properties. One more property is there for the ng for directive. So another property for ng for directive is actually TrackBy. So we have ng for related options. Yesterday I showed you it provides index, it provides first, last, even, odd, and one more is TrackBy. So what is the purpose of even, odd, first, last? One small example I showed you. Now similarly, how we can handle and work with TrackBy. Let's see. Actually, TrackBy is a function pointer. So that means it requires a function. And what is the ability of TrackBy is it will identify. It identifies the changes. It identifies the changes in iterator. Means in you can say changes in collection, and updates the iterator only when change detected. If there is no change detected, it will not perform the iteration. If change is not detected, it will not perform the iteration. That means generally we write iterations and present some content. But what happens is that iteration will happen continuously even when change is not happened. That means there is no change occurred in the collection, but iterator will continue again and again. To overcome that, so we need this TrackBy. TrackBy identifies and handles that. We need that TrackBy to overcome that issue. So generally, what is the purpose of TrackBy? Let's see one example. We will put some data here and design with the help of TrackBy. So let's go to the example iterations component. Yesterday we created this iterations component, and let's try to present some content here. Now let's go to the iterations component TS file. Yeah, this is the iteration component TS file. In that, we have some products. Some products are defined. So let's keep it simple. Now I will go to the presentation and here the button and the presentation. I will clean up this, and let's keep a simple table here for presenting the content. I'm just adding a plain table here. Let's go and add some data. For example, I have this data present. Let's keep only few details. So the few details, that means I will just keep here 3 records. I'm adding some 3 records here. Okay. And I will write another option is some add click. So we are designing a method here. So and configure that as add click. Add click is a method. So what should happen on add click? On add click, we are accessing this data again. So we are accessing the data again. So I will use this dot products. It is accessing the data again. This situation generally we will come across while working with APIs. I will show you one example with API. That means actually we fetch data from API, and we do that in regular occasions. So on button click, on submit click, on add click, on delete click, every time we fetch the API and we present it. That means the same data is here, but one extra added. So that means when I fetched again, then at that time, some new record added. So that means some new content came here. So that is, so here some Lee boots, okay, and some price. So price and some photo. So assets. So shoe1.jpg, something like this. That means now what happened when I call this add click? So when I call that add click, one new record added into the list. Now the question here is, if only one change happened in that collection, will the iterator loop through all the records, or it will update only the record that is newly added? That is the question. That means, is your NG for having the ability to identify only the changed and update only the changed one? So, or it will update all the details. So that is the basic point. So usually it will update all of them. That is burden to application. That is burden to application. Generally, your iterators looping statements will do that. They will perform iteration over all of them. So this will be burden for application, because if you are fetching from millions of records and displaying, then this is very risky. This is what we can handle by using TrackBy. For example, let's see. First, let's present this. So let's present the content here. Let's run that project. ng serve project is shopping. Okay. And let's present this content here. That means we will create a presentation for table. I will just click on div, and here I will add a button. So here add record, that is the button record. And here we will write on click. It will point towards that add click function will be accessible. And let's keep the class btn and btn some primary. And below this, let's add a table. So that is the table here. So class margin top 3 and the class margin top 3. And let's keep a table here. And table and a table hover. In that we have some table header and table header t head. Okay. And the row and header. So we have name, the price, and preview. Okay. Now we are generating a row in the table body. So tr, this row should repeat ng for let item of collection. Collection is products. Products is the collection. And we are generating a cell in that. So item dot name and item dot price. And we are displaying the preview in an image. In an image, we are displaying the preview and showing it. So width is configured to be some 100 or 50. Yeah. Height and src, it is item dot photo. Okay. That is what we have to do. Now, this is the presentation here. So the content we have designed. Now, generally, we are not using any TrackBy for here iterator. So if you are not using TrackBy, usually what happens is this ng for will perform iteration over these products whenever it is called. Whenever it is called. That means, so whenever you are calling that on add click, you are calling it, on load, you are calling it, then every time it will generate these items again and again. So this will be burden. So we will see that first. In the debugger, we will test it and we will check whether it is doing that or not, right? So that means, is it performing iteration on every record, even if it is not necessary for it? Because if there are no changes detected and it is performing iteration, it is a burden for application. So we need to prevent that. Currently, we are hard coding some data, accessing the data and using it. But if data comes from any API, the backend APIs, so and it is displayed, then lot of problems will come because you have to communicate with the server every time on request. And even if there are no changes occurred and you are continuing to fetch the data again and again, it will increase the burden. So let's check that. So it is compiling and we will see how it responds. Without TrackBy, how it responds. Then we will go into how TrackBy it will use. It is compiling, yeah. How TrackBy works, meanwhile, we will see here. So before it compiles and generates it. Generally, how TrackBy works is, suppose we have the data coming from a model. So usually the data comes from model. So from the model, the data is coming. And we are manipulating and displaying the data in a table. So we are adding in a table. Now, here we are using an iterator. So iterator is actually ng for. This ng for, so will now have a option TrackBy. It will have an option TrackBy. TrackBy points towards a function. It's a function pointer, not function calling. So it will be just function name. Function name. It will be just function name. Now what this function will do is, so this function, so we configured that function. This function gets the index number and it returns the index number. It gets the index number and return the index number. So that means this function is going to access the index number of every item inside this particular iterator. And it will verify is the same index is in the model or not. And at the same index, the same content is present or not. It will check that also. That means it will check for the index. That means it will check for record. So record at index. And if any change occurred inside the index, that means some new record is added, one index will update. And if any modification done, that means so modification is done at 0, then it will identify that 0 index or 2 index changed. 2 index changed. Now what it will do is, it will identify which index changed in the model. It will return that index to this TrackBy. Now what TrackBy will do is, TrackBy will tell the ng for to perform iteration of only that particular changed record. If 2 records changed, those 2 will update. If 1 record changed, 1 will update. That means TrackBy will tell ng for, so which index changed and which index it need to iterate. Then it will perform iteration only on that and return it. So this is good. This is how it works. So this is how actually it works. Let's see. I will launch this and let's access this and see. So localhost, okay. And this is the data. Observe carefully. Let's go to the inspect. In the inspect, so here right side I have elements. In that elements body. In the body you can see iterations demo. In that div, in that we have one button, another one is table. And observe this table carefully here. This is table. and in the table body, so three records are present. TR1, TR2, and 3. Three records are present. And observe them carefully. When I click add button, add record button. When I click add record to these three, one more extra is added. I click on add record, one more extra added, but it will perform iteration on all of them. So it will perform iteration on all of them. Observe carefully. So initially we have three records, and let's go into the table and see the rows. Observe carefully these rows. So I click on add record, then it will highlight all of them. I hope you have observed that all of them updated, right? Have you seen? When I click add record again, there is no change occurred, but all of them generated again. I click add record again, it is performing iteration again. So again, add record, it is performing iteration again. It is highlighting means it is iterating again and again. That means even the change not occurred. So it is iterating all the records again and again. All the records again and again. This is usually the burden for server. This is usually burden for we have to do.
Recording in progress.
There is a primary key field in the table, and that primary field you can pass here. Not just index, we can pass the primary key field also. So, but index is okay enough. Why? Because index will tell where the change occurred. So iterator can natively identify that easily. So we will go with this index and see in the HTML. Now this ng for have to use a TrackBy. This TrackBy is expecting a function pointer, and the function is this track change. That is the function. So we have to write track change. That is the function. Remember, these commands are case sensitive. You have to correctly configure them. They are case sensitive. You need to correctly configure them. And remember, many times people ask, sir, why you are not writing parenthesis? Because it is a function. I already told you that it is a function pointer, not a function calling. Point towards the name of the function, not calling the function. So if it is a function pointer, it will not require this parenthesis. So automatically, so this iterator will send the index of every item, and it will verify inside this track change. You don't need to pass a parameter into it. You don't need to call that. So it is just a function pointer. Which function is tracking? That function name you have to tell. That's it. Now you go to the design now. Let's observe now again. So in the body section, and you can see now in the table body, now we have three rows already generated. When I click add record, observe carefully, only the last record will be added. It is not adding all the three records again, only the last record added. I hope you observed that. I hope you have seen this. Right now, when I click on when I click on this add record button again, it's not working. That means it's not working. Add record button again, I am clicking, it's not working. Let's do one thing. So I will put an alert here. Saying that add clicked. So I will say, yeah, and observe carefully now again. So let's do this, and we call that here and display here. And three rows are there. And I am clicking on add record. Then you can see it says add clicked, and okay, the fourth record is added. And I click on add record. So add click fires up, but see no record updated. It's not performing iteration. I click on add record again. The alert comes add clicked, but no change occurred here. If no change occurred, then it will not update this iterator again. It will not perform iteration again if there is no change occurred. That is good. That's very good. This is what we can implement with TrackBy. So iterations usually perform every time. Observe carefully. If I remove this TrackBy, what will happen? That means TrackBy I am not defining. I am removing this TrackBy. Now let's see the change again now. We don't have the TrackBy, so we are not using TrackBy. Then see what happens is I click on add record, add clicked, okay, and then all records generated. I click on add record again, add clicked, okay, again all will generate. I click on add record, again all will generate. Why you are generating all if there are no changes? This is what important to understand, and we can handle that. So by using this TrackBy. So TrackBy is a function pointer. So we have to point towards the function, and it can handle it. This is iteration related properties. So iteration related properties, these are all the properties we are having. Index, first, last, even, odd, TrackBy. So how a function knows about any particular change and identifies, that is by using TrackBy. By using index number we can do that. But remember, while using iterations, every time index number is not the solution. That is also important. Of the item. Position of item So we have a button. And let's keep the class as BTN and BTN danger. And span with the class BI thumbs down, okay. And here we put item dot dislikes and dislikes, okay. And you see this is the design here for the contents. This is the design here. That means for every card we have this likes and dislikes option. Now what should happen is when user clicks the likes button, the likes counter should increase only for this content, only for this card. But what happens now is actually only two buttons are there. These two buttons are repeating for every record. Now what the issue you will face is in iterations, what happens is actually you designed only two buttons, but they are iterating. That means you have two buttons in a card. So one is like button, another one is dislike button. Two buttons are there. Now what happens is you have written a function for that. So likes click. And you have this likes click binded with this button. So the likes click is binded with the button. Actually, the same you are repeating through ng-for. Through ng-for, you are repeating the card. Now what happens is, technically, when I click on likes, so this will point towards the function. But remember, you are using an iteration. That means all will be using the same function. Because these other two records, other two cards are generated over iteration. They are generated over iteration. So they will also use the same function. Now what happens is you increase the like here. So 1, this will update into this function 1, and the same will update to all of them. That means all likes are set to 1. Every record like will be set to 1 because all are pointing towards the same function. But we need to design this function in such a way that it must work individually for every record. When I click likes for the first record, it must work only for that. So it should not affect others. That is the key point here. Now, generally, what happens is when you are performing iteration, to know which like button they clicked, you can send the index number. But index number will send only the position. But we have to get the item at that index number and increment its likes, increment its dislikes. Like that, we have to manage it. So I'm writing a function here. So that is likes click, and another dislikes click. On likes click, dislikes click, this product related likes and dislikes counter should increase. That is the point we need to define. Now, how we can send the information about that item to this particular likes? So actually, if I set index number I will get only the index number of that record. Then again, what I have to do by using this dot products dot find, I have to find the record find the record whose name is matching with it. That means you can search by name, search by ID or something. Find the record so whose name is matching with the name you have entered. And after that, you have to get that searched record, increment its likes. That's very lengthy process. This is not required actually. We can simply, what you can do is, so whenever user clicks on this button, likes button, that means on click here. So that means when user clicks on that click, likes click function will be called. Into that likes click function, we will pass the current iterating item, not its index number. We can pass the iterating item directly. That means into this method, we are passing the entire item, which contains all the details. Now you can access all the details and use them in your function. Similarly, so dislike, why it is showing error? Because likes click is not expecting this parameter. So we designed it empty. It's not expecting the parameter. But now we will collect it, item. So it is any type. Now it is okay. That means it is expecting the parameter, that is fine. Similarly, so here also on click, we will access this likes click function. And into that, we will pass the item. That means every time passing the index number is not a solution. It will get only the position of that particular item. So in various occasions, we have to go with index. We have to go with even, odd. We have to go with first, last. We have to go with passing entire item into this. Now dislikes. So dislikes click. We are sending that item and we will collect that item. And this item contains likes. So we have to just access that item dot likes property and increment it. That's it. That means it will increment the likes only of that particular item. It will not affect others. So similarly, we need to define here. So item dot dislikes plus plus, increment it. And you can see now, when I click on likes of JBL speaker, it will increment the counter for this. It will not affect anywhere. And when I click on the here, it will affect only this leaboard. It will increment only that. So technically, it will affect only which one you have selected. And dislikes, it will work only for the item that you are selecting, That's what generally how it manages the functionality. So when you are dealing with iterations, so using the index number is not a solution every time to identify the item at that particular location. So we can pass the complete item and we can handle the complete item. That is how actually we manage the context and we design the context. This is basically working with and dealing with the iterations, configuring the iterations. So this all comes under the structural directives. So in structural directives, we are having ng if, we are having ng for, we are having ng switch. how do we work with, and what are the various properties related to them and how to deal with them. Next, after understanding the structural directives, we can use combinations actually. Combination like we can have the for and if conditions. This is very regularly used. That means conditions and iterations are used with combination very regularly for filtering. For filtering like operations, we do this very regularly. That means ng for ng if combinations are very common. I will show you that how we can handle it. Means the combinations of them, how we can manage. So let's see, suppose we have some products. So we are having some products information and we don't have any card footers here, just the item related details are configured. So we don't have any card footers here, and let's clean this likes and dislikes, and we have just only few details related to the content. And one more additional field we will add there for every product here. So this is general, the data is presented in this way. We have this data. Now, there can be any other category, like I have another category, another option defined here, like say shirt, fine. And here I defined as shirt.jpg. And one more is some jeans, something like this. And here we have jeans.jpg. So we have some products information here. So some products and display them. For example, now in these products, so whatever details are configured here. Now in the presentation, we are doing one more work. We are configuring the card header and the card image at the top. And let's add some filtering for that. So I will enclose this card group in a div. So with a class as row, and here we have class as call 2 or 3. And right side, we have the class call as 9. Okay. In the 9 columns, we will keep this card group. So that will display here. And we are just keeping this. And here we have the card group display as flex and the flex column. So flex column will keep the content in this way. So we can have width some 50 or 25 for that, adjusting like this. We have some contents, so a lot of contents information is here. Now what we are doing is in the left column, so we are creating a list of options. So for example, let's keep a simple list here, categories, and we will say select a category, select a category, select category. And here we have the select box, so which the categories will be there, form select, and I'm giving some options. You can generate dynamically, or I'm just giving some options, electronics. So an option footwear and option as fashion. Okay. And here I defined as option all. That is the drop down available here. So we are having the drop down at the left side. So it is displaying, this is displaying all the details here. So electronics, footwear, fashion, and all. Now what I want here is when user selects, so when user selects any particular category, electronics, footwear, or fashion, only those category related products must come. I don't want all of them. I want only that particular category related products to display. So you can display in any way. So this is flex row. So it will keep everything flexible in this way. In that case, W100 will be the better for adjusting the width of the content. Your wish, you can display anyway. User selects and it will display only that with that. Let's do it. So here I will keep it to 2 and keep it to 10. So some more space for the contents, fine. When I select here any category electronics, first I need to get the name of the category. So currently this iteration, so this iteration is performed everywhere. That means for all the records. But we want only the records that are matching with that particular category. So how we can handle that? So how we can manage that? Let's see. So we will do one thing. If you want the iterations and conditions to happen, then we will create and configure a simple category option at the top here. Let's create a category. So let's go to the products, and every product is having a category, and this category is electronics. So that means we can access the category electronics, that is electronics, and these two products belongs to electronics, and this is related to footwear, and this is also related to footwear, and these two related to fashion. So we have a category also inside this product. Okay, fashion. Now these are the category names to identify the products which belong to that particular category. Now what we need to do is, so we need to display the categories and configure the categories. So displaying and configuring the categories. So how you can perform the filters, means conditions and filters, how you can handle them. Generally, to perform the filters and configure them, we need a container. Dynamic container is very much important. Without the dynamic containers, we cannot handle that. Let's see. So what are dynamic containers and how we can manage them? Actually, dynamic container is nothing but, see, we need to perform iteration on all products, but don't display all. Only which are matching with the specific condition. We have to handle only which are matching with that condition. So in that case, what we have to do is, if you want only that are matching with the condition, so then we have to keep a if condition inside it and search for the products that belong to only that particular category and display them. So that is how we can handle. So let's see how we can write that. So this div is a card, but I don't want card for all the products. Remove that from here. And we need to keep this card, div card, this card, that is the card we configured here. We need to keep that card inside a container, a dynamic container. We have to use an ng container. ng container. It is a dynamic container. It's an Angular container. Why we need this ng container? Why can't you put a div? You can put a div also, no problem. But what happens is, unnecessarily, if you add any HTML element, that HTML element may cause abnormal presentation behavior. Because suppose you are designing a table, and in the table, I want to present a row. And in the row, I want to present some cell. So some cell with some conditions and all. And suddenly, inside it, you added a div. And inside the div, you added a row. Then logic-wise, it will work, no problem. You can perform iteration on this div. It will work, no problem. But using a div in a table will cause the presentation behavior abnormal. It will not correctly present because div will keep everything in as with a line break. So due to that, your presentation will misbehave. Functionality will work, no problem. That is the reason we don't unnecessarily use any ready-made. We don't unnecessarily use any HTML elements, What we do is we always prefer using, so technically always we prefer using the concept of working with dynamic containers. And the dynamic containers are nothing but, usually dynamic containers are, we have ng container. It is a dynamic container. We will see the dynamic containers. So in various other occasions also, you will understand them. So, but how you manage the presentation now? So let's see. This container will use ng for let item of products. That is fine. That means you see in the presentation, you will find that it is same. There is no change. That's working fine. It will not have any abnormal behavior. Now, next step, what we have to do is we need to identify which option they are selecting. Let's keep the option here. So this option have a value, all. Another option have a value. Value is what we submit, electronics. And here we have the value. So we have the value, footwear. And here we have the value, fashion. Okay. Now we need to cut this and store in a reference. Let's create a simple property, selected category. Selected category is having all by default value. We will bind this with this drop down. So by using two-way binding technique, ng model, we will bind that selected category. Selected category is binded with that. That's fine. Now this is binding with that item. Okay. That means which category you are selecting, the category name will be stored inside it. So now we need to get that category name and use it here in filtering. That means now observe, every item is having an extra category. So now the card here we are displaying. So we are writing, so ng if selected category is equal to, selected category is equal to all, or we are writing a condition, or selected category is equal to any of the item dot category. If it is matching with item category, then display them. That means we have all category as item category. The category you selected is matching with the item category, then it needs to display. So here I selected electronics, only electronics will come. Here I selected footwear, only footwear will come. I selected fashion, only fashion will come. And I selected all, then it will display all. It depends on how you want to present. That means we are using the combination of iterations and conditions. Iterations and conditions. So you are selecting here, and that selected category name will be passed into this condition. Because currently, so this container is iterating over all the items, but we don't want to display all items. Then inside ng-for, you can write ngIf. Remember, already I told you. So suppose we have ng container, or we have a div or anything. In this, we are already writing ng-for. And here itself, if you try to write ngIf also, this is invalid. Why? Because already we learned that every element can have only one structural directive. So you cannot have multiple structural directives defined in one element. So you have to make sure that it is ngIf is used at the level below. So not in the same element. So that is why we are using this. For example, see here, I am writing instead of container, I am creating a div here. I kept the content inside a div. That is one div and another div here. So we have these divs here instead of container. I'm using a div here instead of the container. You see, when I use a div instead of the container, so you see the content presented, but abnormal in presentation. So much abnormality in the presentation. That means your functionalities will work properly. It's okay. But presentation causes abnormal behavior. Because what happens is, in the presentation, when you look at the design, so when you look at the design here, so in the presentation, this div will display the content, no problem. But what happens is the content height, content width will fit abnormal, because you are adding a div inside another div. Div repeats, inside div also repeats. That's a lot of presentation issues. So that is the point. We need to avoid that by using some virtual containers. Virtual container means in reality, that container is not presenting anything so directly in DOM. It is just a container holding logic. It will not present anything directly in the DOM. So that's good. It is holding only the logic, and inside that logic, this div is generated. That's good. That's enough. So that is the reason we don't want this div. So we will keep this as ng container, and we call this as a container. We configure as a container. Now it looks better in the appearance. It looks better. And the functionality will be same. Of course, when you are presenting the content, you can use anything here. That means you can use any control. It's not like I have used only drop down. You can use radios, you can use checkboxes, you can get the value from them, and you can display them. That's depending on your condition. So you can use checkboxes, you can use radios. For example, suppose roughly here I am defining, so select category. So I am using another option, choose category, and I'm using, so here a div. So that is input type is equal to radio, and the name is category, and value is all, and here we defined all, and here we will bind. So by using ng model, selected category we are binding, and you know that. So for all radios, so we will have same name, but value will be changing. Electronics, here we have footwear, so here we have fashion, so fashion, and here, so change this to electronics, so electronics, so this to footwear, so footwear, and fashion, like this, fashion. Now you see here, so this time all these are binded to radio buttons. You have these radio buttons. So actually all I kept in a div. So suppose if I keep this div everything in a separate row, that will be better. So that means I will keep this as an unordered list. Yeah, that will be better, so that we can keep everything in a list item. We can configure every option in a list item. Fine. So let's create here a list item and add that. So this is the record. So inside the list item, that will be better. So just for presentation's sake, here we have a list item and we are presenting that. Okay. Now we have the list item and presenting. These are all the options here now. And user can select anyone. So unordered list, I given as a class list unstyled. So, okay, then it will just give you these options. And now user can select any electronics, then only electronics will come. Footwear will come. Fashion will come. You can use these radios, checkboxes, anything. You try one thing, one extra work I will give to you, you try. You put checkboxes here. In a switch form, put the checkboxes. And if user selects checkboxes, advantage is user can select more than one. User can choose more than one. You put checkboxes there. And when user selects electronics and fashion, both electronics fashion should come. If user selects electronics footwear, then electronics footwear should come. You try the same with the checkboxes. So collect the value from checkbox and try to display and use them here. If you can do that, that's good. That means now you are in the track of understanding the concept. So try the same with checkboxes so that user can select more than one checkbox, then more than one category should come. So you have to put the logic for if condition in this by using that checkbox combination. You try that exercise. Now, once we know this, now next we need to understand how to use the attribute directives. What are attribute directives and how we can work with attribute directives. So, and we will design one complete example with some APIs, how to interact with the API, pull the API and present with the help of ng for an ng if. That we will see in our next session. Tomorrow we will discuss about that. Okay. Tomorrow we will see what are attribute directives and how to deal with the APIs in the backend. Then we can pull the real-time data and use the data. Okay. Tomorrow we'll see that.